Where my girls at? Where my girls at? Independent, free spirit. Ooh, it's so serious. Where my girls at? We ain't linked up in a cool minute. Where my girls at? It's going down, down. Where my girls at? It's going down, down. It's going down tonight. We going out tonight. Yeah, right. We going out tonight. It's going down tonight. Yeah, right. It's going down tonight. We going out tonight. Yeah, right. We going out tonight. It's going down tonight. Yeah, right.
Hey, hey, hey. All right. It's going down. It's going down tonight. This is Sabrina Goodwin Monday with We Got Issues. I'm your host today, all the way from Geneva, Ohio, my new hometown. And where my girls at? When I tell you they are not all here today, but I do have my girl, First Lady Crisette Ellis, and my sister, my real sister, Regina Goodwin, who's filling in for the girlfriends. Caterina is on vacation. She is honeymooning. Beautiful places. Oh, she's sending us pictures like crazy. And then totally resting and relaxing. Gloria is on her way to a big conference. If you follow her on social media, you'll see her. And then we do have First Lady Crisette and my sister, Regina Goodwin, filling in for the girlfriends. And today we are talking all things Muhammad Ali. Yes. There's been an incredible series on PBS, public broadcasting station. And they've done like 8-9 hours of incredible work on the life, the man, the myth, the legend, Muhammad Ali. He's made such a difference in our world. We believe he was the greatest of all time. And so we're going to talk about that. But before we jump into our topics, you guys, I know that you're going to call in 313-778 778-7600. Have you met Muhammad Ali? Do you know something about Muhammad Ali? Well, why don't you add to the conversation and call us right now? Where my girls at? Carolyn Muse, it's going down all the way from Jacksonville, Florida. Felicia Lewis, a regular. We love to see you. And yes, we're here every day, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we've got a lot going on. There's a mass shooting right outside of Memphis this afternoon, right at Kroger grocery store.
I missed that.
Yep. Headline news. Turn on the news. It's there. Kroger grocery store. He killed himself, killed one other person. 4 or 5 people are in critical condition. And so we are praying for those families for sure. But isn't it something? We know there's school shootings, there's store shootings. You go into Kroger just to get some hamburger meat and don't come out. It Lord is the state of affairs. It is the Lord have mercy. So Crisette, how are you today? You're looking good. And then we'll throw it to our girlfriend, our sitting in girlfriend, my sister Regina. How you doing, Crisette?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm a little cold. For those of you that are listening, you can't see, but those of you that are watching, you see I had to pull out a sweater today. When I tell you fall hit us just like that, can you believe, every day, we've had on short sleeves, had our arms out, our shoulders out. And when I tell you ain't nothing out today, it is really chilly here. It is literally a fall day, like 56 degrees, and it has been raining like yesterday all day long. So this literally is one of those days where you really want to just stay in and not go out if you don't have to. So fall is here. They say stick around Michigan. The weather will change, but fall is one of my favorite times of the year. I love seeing the the trees change colors. And I love that, you know, you can layer up the crispness in the air when you're outside. So, you know, it's welcome. But I was hoping that we would have an Indian summer. I was like, okay, fall can swing in right around the middle of October. So we'll see. But yeah, it's been really, really rainy. And, you know, I haven't caught a whole lot of news. I was on the way home listening to the news, and I know there's a lot going on right now. And Regina, you probably know more information on this. They were talking about the George Floyd Policing Act, that it did not pass. And they were interviewing, I believe it was his cousin or one of his relatives. And she was just saying how disappointed she was that it did not pass. And I want to say, they were saying that Senator Tim Scott is one that, you know, was the holdout that did not sign off on it. And she was just saying that President Biden had promised that it was going to happen. So my heart goes out to them and the family, because when something like that happens, it's just like you relive it over and over again. So I don't know, can he do it? And that's a question for you, Regina. Can he sign an executive order and get it done? Or is that something that he doesn't want to use an executive order on? So that's just something that really caught me on today. And so, you know, that just hurt my heart, because I think that it is absolutely necessary that they hold police officers accountable. It's important that there is accountability. So that's the news that I have for today. I'm throwing it over to my favorite sister, Regina. How you doing, Regina?
Crisette, you're too funny. Thank you, honey. Listen, you raised some excellent points. The difficulty is, we've known for quite a while that was probably not going to pass, and folks would hold out hope. But and we can't blame it solely on Tim Scott, the Black Republican there. Remember, you got a whole bunch of Republicans that have not really given themselves to the George Floyd Act, right? We might want to lay it there because he happens to share the same skin color. However, the bottom line is it needs to pass. It does not have the support to pass. And so in terms of legislation, you got to have those votes. So President Biden just can't go in and single-handedly do that. We're talking about legislation that has to go through both houses. And we knew pretty much that it wasn't going to make it, but you always hold out hope. But the bottom line is, you guys, you just have to have the will to do the right thing. You got to have the heart to do the right thing. This is beyond Democrat and Republican. This is really a light and dark thing as far as I'm concerned. Either you want to do right and you let the elements of darkness prevail, or we all get together and do the right thing. So I don't care what you are, Democrat, Republican, everybody knows the George Floyd Act needs to pass. And our police officers need to be held accountable. Comes to qualified immunity, all of that. So bottom line is, hey, y'all, we've had these issues before we got here. Our ancestors had to deal with it. I'm pretty sure our descendants will have to deal with it. We got to do what we can while we're on our watch. So our giving voice to it today, we're not going to give up.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you, State Representative Regina Goodwin, who represents the District 74 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. 73 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, we're going straight to the phone lines. We've got a caller. Call in 313-778-7600. We're talking about a few different things, all things Muhammad Ali, but let's jump to the phone lines. Caller, are you there? Hello? Buck?
Hello? Buck? Yeah, oh yeah. Hey, hey, I just listened to what y'all talking about the George Floyd Act. That was nothing but a big pacifier they put out there. They knew that stuff wasn't going to pass. They put it out there. They knew it wasn't going to pass, but that's how they pacify people when the anger was around George Floyd. Now watch how things just settle down and ain't nobody going to talk nothing about it in a minute. It's going to be past this. Are you still there? Going out there just as a pacifier to us. Right. Nah, I don't think us because I'm black, but I'm so for real. They all this is common practice. Whenever something big happens, they'll know it ain't gonna pass. They It's just nothing but what they call it, a pony show, a telepony show, something like that. It ain't nothing but a show. They put it out there just to pacify everybody. Oh, we got a George Floyd bill that's going to reform the police. They ain't reforming no police. You know what I'm saying? And that's all that was just something to pacify the public and try to calm everybody down, and we fell for it again, like we always do. They know what they're doing. They know what they got to do. This is the practice right here. This is the strategy they use to die things down. Ain't nothing gonna change. You understand what I'm saying? I don't think nothing gonna change until, and I'm not even gonna say that. I don't want to promote that because I'm not with that at all. But nothing's gonna change until some power comes against these police forces. I'm not gonna say what kind of power I had in my mind, but I'm gonna just say until they feel threatened, when they threaten us, they will continue to threaten us and abuse us until they feel they're going to be abused as well for doing so. And that's the only thing. Only thing that changes manipulation of power is more power than a manipulator. I just want to put it out there like that. But I just wanted to let everybody know that was nothing but a big old show. That's all. They put on that show for everybody. They knew that stuff wasn't so bad. That was just a pacifier to pacify the public. And if anybody else feel like that, let me know you feel like that, because I hope I ain't the only one that know that. You know what I'm saying? But I just want to put that out there because it just touched the nerve with me. And everybody saw how it felt. They knew it was going to fail for the beginning, you know? That's all I wanted to say, y'all.
All right, Doc, we thank you for calling. We got issues.
But we knew that it was going through the process. Like State Representative Goodwin said, nobody really was surprised that it didn't pass. We do have to keep hope alive. We do have to continue to fight the good fight. State Representative Regina, how would you address Buck's issue or concern, his thoughts?
I think he has every right to say what he's saying. But it's not that anybody fell for anything. We knew that it was a uphill climb. And I will say this, for whatever progress we have seen in America, whatever it is, somebody said it wasn't going to happen, right? And it might have taken 10 years to come, might have taken 20 years to come. We got to keep fighting the good fight. We're not going to give up. And I concur. I agree with what he's saying, but it's not that anybody was fooled. And we're not out here doing what we do to be playing games. We are affected in our communities. We understand that Black men, women, young men, women are at risk, being killed, murdered every day. And so it's real. And we don't give up, though. You know, we can be mad for a minute, then we got to keep it moving and keep doing what we can in our communities bit by bit.
Yeah. We've got to keep hope. We've got to stay faithful. We got to keep believing a change is going to come. We know that it's frustrating. We know that it doesn't feel good when the vote comes up and it's not passed. And when it seems like it's a game, it does appear like this thing is a game. And police do have to be held accountable. I think when there are checks and balances for the police force, we're going to make headway. Some headway has been made. Regina, I know that you worked very hard for body cams in Oklahoma. Talk about the progress that you made in your state.
So let me just say that it is difficult. We have, for instance, we've had some progress as it relates to persons convicted of felonies being able to vote in terms of making that more clear. Actually, I was on the phone about that. Also, we've had some women that have been in prison that when they were delivering babies, they were in shackles. We've had that law that is no longer allowed in Oklahoma. There's some progress being made. I can tell you right now with Julius Jones on death row. For the first time in Oklahoma's history, we have a man now that has been recommended for commutation. Never happened in Oklahoma's history. So that's progress. God still sits on the throne. We're going to keep doing what we can. We're still fighting for Terrence Crutcher. And I can tell you that we've gotten a man out of prison who had a life sentence without parole. And he's at home right now eating pork chops and rice, as he tells me. So we're going to keep fighting. There are good stories. And we got to stay on the battlefield. But to the gentleman's point, he's right. It's not a game for us. And we're not the majority. Had we been the majority, a lot would be different because I think many of us want to be more fair. So to his point, I feel him. Bottom line is we got to keep trying. And there is progress being made.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
good, Regina. Because when you think about the civil rights movement, and you think about Dr. Martin Luther King, you think about individuals that went through so much, trying to make so many changes. I can only imagine that there were times when they had to question, was it worth it? When it seemed like it was getting better, then something else got worse. Dr. King fighting down south, and then he comes up north to Chicago and says that the racism in the north in Chicago was worse than anything he ever saw down south. So I can just imagine that they got weary. But you know what? The Bible tells us, be not weary in well doing, for in due season. And you know what? The problem with due season is not necessarily 365 days. It's not necessarily 5 years. It might be 100 years. You just don't know what due season is, but we cannot be weary in this fight.
Amen.
That's it. That's it. Amen. 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 Well, you guys, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. 313-778-7600. We've got another caller on the line. Reggie, are you there? How are you today?
Hello.
How are you
Yes,
today?
sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm fine, and yourself?
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for calling. We got issues.
Well, I noticed
What's on your mind?
I think I said I noticed that, and I just want to tell you guys you're doing a great job and continue the great work. And just State Representative Ms. Goodwin, I love her, and continue to do what she's doing.
Thank you, Brother Reggie. Thank you, thank you. That's Reggie from that Mendel. That's my brother from another mother. Thank you, Reggie.
Yes,
Reggie, we love you.
great day, and God bless you.
Thank you, Reggie. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, you guys. We got issues. 313-787-7600.
We are talking all things Ali. I know that you're a state representative, but you love sports. You are a black belt in karate. So many people don't know that. You're
Really?
a basketball player. Yes.
Didn't know.
But yep. So Regina, talk about your love for sport and how you came to admire the man, the myth, the legend, Muhammad Ali, and how it was when our dad took us out of school to take us to meet the man himself.
Yes. So, Sabrina, I was thinking, first of all, I've just always loved Muhammad Ali. I've loved the fact that he was great in his sport. I love the fact that he loved people. I love the fact that he had a strength and a courage that is rare even today. And I love the way he talked noise and he backed it up, but it was done in a playful way. I never saw him as conceited like some folks did.
Right.
I saw him as a man who knew how to psych out his opponents. I remember being in the 3rd grade, running up and down the hallways of Charles S. Johnson when Muhammad Ali was going to be fighting Joe Frazier. And I said, oh, Muhammad Ali's going to be fighting. So I've just always loved him, always followed him. And yes, did not God smile on us when Daddy, who worked for the Oklahoma Eagle newspaper, our family newspaper, oldest black newspaper in Oklahoma, he had his camera and he was going to be writing a story, and he took us to go meet Muhammad Ali, and he got us out of school. And the picture that you promoted before the radio show shows me in total awe. I don't even know, as we're being posed, taking the picture of Muhammad Ali, I don't even feel that you stepping on my foot at the moment. Right? you in there getting a squeeze and a hug and a kiss from Muhammad Ali. I'm waiting my turn. You all on my foot with your mini skirt on, my mini skirt, my little braid in front of my head. And I was just hypnotized and wasn't feeling nothing, right? Just trying to wait my turn. But, it must have been maybe 1969 or so when he came through Tulsa, Oklahoma. And how did you feel about that, elbowing me out the way so you could get to him first?
Well, you know what? I remember that was a great day. That was one of my greatest days of my childhood when my daddy came to pick me up from school. I remember that little dress I had on. It was red and blue. My favorite dress ever. And Regina, you talk about how short it was. It was a mini skirt. And I was probably too little. I probably should have gave it up a year or so ago. But I love that little dress. And I knew we were going to see Muhammad Ali that day. So I told Mama to put on my best mistress. And that was a great day when we got to meet Muhammad Ali. You know, our daddy, he was everywhere. Where anybody was, he was there with his camera and with his newspaper credentials, getting in to see who he needed to see. And way back then, we knew that if you surround yourself by greatness, you have seeds of greatness planted within you. And you're right, Muhammad Ali talked a lot of noise, but he could back it up. He talked a lot of noise, you guys. One of his favorite, Regina, about what's on his tombstone. Well, we gotta go. We'll be back right after this break. But we want to talk about the marker on his tombstone when we get back. You're listening to We Got Issues with the Force of Friendship. Sabrina, Regina, Crisette today. 313-778-7600. Make sure you share the broadcast. We'll be right back.
Hey, you guys, what's up? What's up? It is Thursday. It's Thursday. And yep, we're talking everything about Muhammad Ali. OMG, I think I probably have seen all the major movies about Muhammad Ali. All of them, I mean, are so good. The one with, I think one of my favorites is the one with Will Smith portraying him. And, you know, how, you know, just his life and all of the things that he went through. And, you know, I was doing some research about Muhammad Ali, and it's amazing when you start delving into people's lives, you find out some things that you never knew before. And one of the things that they said about Muhammad Ali is what kind of launched him into his boxing career is that when he was 12 years old, his red Swin bicycle was stolen. And so he called the police, and the gentleman, the police officer that came, you know, said, oh, when we catch whoever stole it, we're going to plummet him. We're going to get him. But he said, before you do that, you need to learn how to fight. And therefore, he told him to go and to enroll into, and I think he's from Louisville, Kentucky, to go to this trainer. And that's how he started boxing, is because his bicycle was stolen. And I said, you know, years ago, so many years ago, life was so simple. Somebody stole something and you may have gotten in a fight, but, you know, you didn't pull out weapons and you didn't, you know, per se kill people over material things, a bike, but to take that energy, that anger, and to put it someplace that benefited him the rest of his life was absolutely amazing. And so I did not know that about Muhammad Ali. So what do you guys know about Muhammad Ali? Maybe you guys, some of you may, your parents may have told you stories. Maybe they went to see him fight, or maybe you love boxing. How many of you love boxing? You know, back in the day, I think, you know, my dad watched boxing. I watched a little bit of it, but it's kind of a brutal sport. Oh, you know, you sit there and you watch them, and I know it's a sport, but it's like, I could never do it. Never, ever, ever. And then his daughter, you know, she followed in his footsteps and she started boxing. So
We're back. This is Sabrina Goodwin Monday with my sister Regina and my girlfriend, one of the Force of Friendship, First Lady Crisette Ellis. We are here talking all things Muhammad Ali. Call in at 313-778-7600. You know, we are powerful. We are purposeful. We are on point. We talk about it all on We Got Issues. Sometimes it's light, sometimes it's heavy, sometimes it's inspiring. It makes you think. And so today we want to talk about the man, the myth, the legend. If you guys have not checked it out, you got to go back and watch this incredible documentary by Ken Burns, who has just done an amazing Emmy-winning he's an Emmy-winning documentarian, Ken Burns. He has just done an amazing job with this documentary. It's 8 hours of all things Ali. And so, Regina, I know you have watched every second of it. I have not watched it all, but why don't you tell the people what you've enjoyed so much about the documentary, and then let's go to what's on Muhammad Ali's marker that is so near and dear to our family's heart.
Okay. And so what basically, I love that picture where everybody can see you on my toes.
Talk about that picture a little bit, Regina.
No, this was just you could see I'm just mesmerized, waiting my turn. You're stepping on my foot. Muhammad Ali is hugging you. Also at the table was Boondini Brown, who traveled with Muhammad Ali, who was his corner man. And it was Boondini Brown who said, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. And just to be in the presence of greatness, it was just, I think the picture says it all. And then, as you know, we would later meet him again. And also other family members. You know, he had, maybe there were 4 encounters throughout our life. There was when he went down to the Eagle office with our father, pictured with him, and also with our Uncle Jim. So he had different occasions that we know of that he came through Tulsa. The documentary, if I hope folks are watching it, I hope they saw it. It's just the photographs, the video, some unseen video that I hadn't seen, his interaction with people, his training, quite frankly, his wives and his love life and all of that. They go into great details. Hearing his children talk about their daddy and what a great father he was. It's just, it's really must-see documentary if you want to know who Muhammad Ali was. And also, look at the fact that during that time, he was a Black man who was unapologetically Black. He was a man who spoke to white folks in a way that folks are afraid sometimes today to speak. And in that day, he literally said he was willing to die for his beliefs. He was really willing to die for a cause. And he knew that he was really bigger than boxing, than his vocation. He knew that. And that's why he took the principled stands that he did, oftentimes in terms of war, in terms of standing up for those that, disadvantaged in various communities, Chicago, etc. So, if folks know Muhammad Ali, they know the story.
Right. And
what do you think about Muhammad Ali?
Well, I was just going to say some things that I learned about Muhammad Ali in preparing for the show that I did not know is why he got involved in boxing in the first place. Is they were saying when he was 12 years old, his red Swin bike was stolen. And when he called the police officer, Joe Martin, he was a, amateur boxer. That's what he did. He came and he said, well, you know what, when we find him, we're going to get him, but you need to know how to fight. And he took him under his wing, took him, to the boxing arena, wherever they were, and taught him how to box. And 6 weeks later, he won his first boxing match. I said, it's amazing the things that happen to us in life that can make us bitter or make us better, or it can be the impetus to get us started on the road to the purpose for which we were called. So I thought that was interesting because I had never heard that story. And then his original name, Cassius Marcellus Clay, he was named after a 19th century white man who emancipated 40 slaves that he inherited from his father. I mean, when I read that, I said, wow, that was, he was named after that. But when I read the inherit, how do you inherit people? That's another talk show, but he emancipated 40 slaves. Absolutely.
That's right.
So I thought that was interesting.
Excellent point, Crisette. And then, of course, when he became a Muslim, right, so did the name change come to Muhammad Ali, which he, some reporters did not want to call him Muhammad Ali. Some Black folks didn't want to call him Muhammad Ali. And he insisted on the name change. And, Muhammad, worthy to be praised, and Ali, the Most High. And when you have that kind of name, names mean something. And the name that his parents had given him, named after his father, you're right. That was also had a rich history behind it in terms of an abolitionist. And so there's absolutely something in a name. something in the name for sure.
Yeah, and he talked about, well, Cassius Clay he first changed his name to Cassius Clay. And then he said, no, later on, he said, no, I don't even want that name. I want to, and everybody needs to address me as Muhammad Ali. If you don't call me Muhammad Ali, I will not respond to you. And it's really interesting that way back then, he commanded that kind of respect just by a request. But that's how confident he was in who he wanted to be, how he wanted to be addressed, and what he believed in.
And you know, to that point, when we're talking about the 60s and the turbulence and all that was happening, very similar to some that's going on today, here was a man who talked about being a free man. He said, I'm a free Black man. And what he meant by that is he's going to always be true to who he is, and he was not going to kowtow to anybody, and he wasn't afraid of anybody. And he said the price of freedom is high, and he said, I've paid the price. And in so many ways, millions and millions of dollars he forfeited because he held on to certain principles as it related to going to war and certain folks wanting him to be going to a service. And on his religious beliefs. Yeah.
Right. And to be able to stand on your principle, you know, for him, you know, to be banned from boxing for 3 years because he refused to fight in the Vietnam War. And he was like, you know, none of the Vietnamese had ever called him the N-word. So why am I going to go and fight, you know, in another country where I'm being called the N-word in my own country? And I just look at his life and the things that I've learned about him and say, wow, I mean, when you stand on principle, you know, that means you cannot be bought. And you're absolutely right, Regina, when you said he lost millions of dollars standing on principle. Some people, you know, depending on if the price is high enough, okay, then, you know, I can kind of change my principles, but the integrity of, you know, saying I have to live with myself and I'm just not going to do it. So if it means I can't do what I love, then I'm just not going to be able to do what I love because this is the right thing to do. That's a lesson for us all.
Amen.
Yeah. He was one of the first professional athletes to put politics before sports. Now, here we are, decades before NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick took a stand for racial justice by kneeling during the national anthem. Ali also saw his career suffer for his beliefs. On April 1967, April 28th, when he refused to be inducted into the U.S. Army, citing his Muslim faith and his unwillingness to fight underprivileged people on the other side of the world. He said, "It is in the light of my consciousness as a Muslim minister and my own personal convictions that I take my stand in rejecting the call to be inducted." He also said, "I find I cannot be true to my beliefs in my religion by accepting such a call." I mean, when you talk about if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And he forfeited a lot. Many people rejected him, but he said that's okay. He was stripped of his heavyweight title, and in June of that year, he was convicted of draft evasion, which came with a $10,000 fine, a 5-year prison sentence, and a 3-year ban from the sport, like you talked about, Crisette. The appeals process kept him out of jail, but he didn't return to the ring until 1970. The Supreme Court later overturned the conviction in 1971. So here we are, still fighting the good fight, still being ostracized for doing what's right. And it's just something. He also, what I loved about Ali, he was quick with the words. Quick with his words. I mean, he always, and I mean, just some of the favorite quotes, you guys. Of course, what is the favorite quotes that you remember? I'm going to look them up because it's a lot. Go ahead.
Float like a butterfly. How does it go? Float like a butterfly? No, something. Sting like a bee.
That's it. That's it, Crisette. That's it. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. He was light on his feet, light on his feet. Okay, you guys, we're going to the phone lines. We'll be right back to our panel. Hello, Jim, are you there? Jim.
When he went back to Louisville, I think it was a recreation center, and all the kids were there. And his last wife, she was 11 years old at the time, and she said, "I'm going to marry you." And that's the wife that he had when he died. She took care of him. I think she was a doctor. And she told him, at 11 years old, "I'm going to marry you." That's all I got to say.
Wow. That was wild. Yeah, that was wild. Regina, talk about that.
Of course, we know Muhammad Ali was married 4 times, I believe. And so talk about his last wife that Jim just talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. They happened to live across the street from each other. She was a very, very young girl. Literally, as he says, she had even met him even earlier. And Muhammad Ali was Muhammad Ali, young guy, maybe 20 or so. And you're right, there was that interaction. And she would, of course, watch him and admire him from afar. And who would think that, she would become a woman at that time, then she would become his wife. And what is something about Lonnie, again, that's a whole nother show if you just talk about the wives and that whole interaction. But Lonnie was one towards the end when he was failing in health, and when the diagnosis of Parkinson's was determined, she took Muhammad Ali on when he wasn't very vocal, when he wasn't at his best. And everybody talks about how a lot of the hangers-on, she kind of got his financial affairs better in order because he was very generous with his money. They say he could start off at $30,000 at the top of the day and come home with none because he was so generous with what he had to whomever needed it. And so for Lonnie, and she is, the wives are still living, that much can be said in terms of how she cared for Muhammad Ali. But I just want to briefly just go through the wives. You started with Sonji, his very first wife, who was a very wonderful, pretty woman. She did not necessarily want to become a Muslim, but he was infatuated with her. They did marry. It was a short marriage. Everybody knows Muhammad Ali talks about the fact that he was a womanizer. That he would cheat on his wives. That's the bottom line. Then there was Belinda, who he met at a bakery. She was a Muslim, and they were together. Then she changed her name to Kalila. Everybody knows that story. That they talk about how similar they were to each other. She was would stand up for herself and speak truth to power. The other side of it was, she says herself, at times she was too accommodating, that she knew that as much as she loved him, he was cheating on her. And at some point, enough was enough. But she talks about that somewhat she was an enabler. She literally, when he had his other woman, who was at that time, and it's known, it's in the documentary, but we knew it. We watched this, right? Nobody had to tell us. We were watching it unfold in front of our very eyes. When we saw Veronica Porsche accompanying Belinda or Kalila along with Muhammad Ali. And we would be watching this saying, well, who is she and what's going on? And no, she's not the nanny. And no, she's not the housekeeper. And she would soon.
She's the concubine.
So then he cheated on Belinda with Veronica, then married Veronica, and actually got married while he was married to Belinda or Kalila. Then Belinda.
Who does that in the USA? How do you take on another wife and you already married? This is not Africa.
Yeah, they actually got married. They actually got married in Africa, but that don't make no difference because it's still wrong. Okay. And Veronica said it's complicated. As you'll see, that was her statement during the documentary. I don't think it's that complicated. I think we know right and wrong. And then also certain faiths believe certain things as it relates to marriage and matrimony. Bottom line is we're in America, And the other was after Veronica then got married to Muhammad Ali, she talked about being cheated on. So that's that. So many lessons in his life, right? Because even Muhammad Ali talked about karma coming back to him when he developed Parkinson's. He says he thinks it was attributed to him not being kind to his wives. And then Lonnie came. Yeah.
I'll say this, Regina, just to add to that, isn't it interesting how many times, just listen to you talk about the different women that he had and that he eventually married them. And, it always is kind of interesting that the other woman thinks that her new husband that she took from someone else is going to be faithful to her. And so even though he wasn't faithful to his wife because he cheated with you, so now you expect him to be faithful to you, and he turns around and do the same thing, because I totally believe you reap what you sow. And so, you fooled around with him while he was married. And so the same thing happened to you. So that's just, when you think about people like Muhammad Ali and other people of his stature, it's something, nobody is exempt and nobody is perfect. Everybody has flaws, and his just happened to be women. But I'm reading in our chat some of the things that our viewers are writing about, some of the things they used to love to hear him say. And I love this when he used to say, "I'm so pretty. I'm so pretty." Now, nowadays, a man couldn't say that. A man couldn't say that without eyebrows being raised. What do you mean by that? But he would say, and touch his face, "I'm so pretty." Yeah. And he was saying, in other words, ain't nobody gonna mess with this face. I'm so pretty that you better believe when I leave the ring, I'm still gonna be pretty because you're not gonna hit me in my face. And then Terry said, the hands can't hit what the eyes can't see. The hands can't hit what the eyes can't see. He just was so quick-witted. He had so many sayings. You would just have to laugh. And I loved the relationship that he had with, who was it? Roger Cosell?
Howard Cosell.
Howard Cosell. Howard. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. I would love to hear them go, the footage that I've seen. And I remember growing up seeing them on TV. And it was a great relationship to see how they would banter and go back and forth with each other.
Yeah. And go ahead, Regina.
One saying that I love to hear him say is that I'm so fast, I can turn the light off and be in the bed before it's dark, before the room gets dark. I can turn the light off and get in the bed before the room gets dark.
I love it.
He was something else. How about this one? If he said bragging is when a person says something and can't do it. I do what I say. He said, I am the greatest. I said that even before I knew I was. He also said, don't count the days, make the days count. I'm young, I'm handsome, I'm fast. I can't possibly be beat. He was something else. Somebody says, I don't understand why he was accused of cheating if his religion allowed him to have multiple wives.
I don't think his religion has that. Can you do that?
Some faiths do allow, they do believe in multiple wives. That here's what's at the heart of this conversation is the wives said he was cheating. So whatever understanding he had with his wives, if his wives are accusing him of cheating, then he was cheating. So that says that there had to been some kind of understanding between the man and the woman, or they would not have said, I had enough, I left, right? But they all accused him of cheating. So that's coming from his own wife's perspective.
Yeah. And, at one point, because there was one wife who said, I just had enough and I left. She just decided. Yeah. Which wife was that?
That was a Belinda or Kalila. And then also Veronica said the same thing. She said, it had happened so much she had become numb.
Wow. So, yeah. It happened so much she became numb. That's a whole lot. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You guys, his quotes were, how about this one? I'm so mean, I make medicine sick. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
something else. He was something else. He also talked about using the media and not letting, oh, here it is, Mormonism and certain Muslim groups
Yeah.
allow polygamy, multiple wives. But again, yes, Islam allows it. You must be able to support them. You must be able to support them.
Didn't know that. Thank you, Carol.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I love how Muhammad Ali used the media. He didn't let media, he really knew how to work media way back then. He said he would make the media work for him. So many times the media tries to outsmart our athletes. They try to outsmart the politicians. They try to outsmart the celebrities. But Muhammad Ali was wise beyond his years back then. And he said, yeah, I'll interview you as long as my talking points are heard. And so, Regina, talk a little bit about that, because I know you and I talked about that last night.
Yeah, I think Crisette hit it when she talked about Howard Cosell. And Howard Cosell was someone who, first of all, liked Muhammad Ali and would allow him to have his voice heard. And they had to get a better understanding also, because they weren't friendly at the very beginning. And I think that you're absolutely right. Muhammad Ali would take any vehicle, whether it was television, and I ask anybody to go back and look at some of his videos, his interviews, even now, and see how well he handled the media. He controlled the room. He controlled the narrative. And and he would often say when people would try to talk about his particular religion, where they would talk about his stance as related to the war. Again, as Crisette has touched on, he talked about the issues. He got to the heart of it. And he would not be distracted. He didn't care how many folks disliked him. He didn't care how many folks thought he was a loudmouth. And he talked about going into the ring, knowing that he had the whole world on his shoulders. He would go in talking about, I'm going in fighting for the rights of Black folks. I'm going in fighting and letting folks understand who I am in his particular faith as a Muslim. And he carried that, and he addressed those issues. And again, when you can talk to an all-white audience with a white interviewer and say, the Viet Cong are not my enemy, the white man is my enemy. In that context, he was talking about the fact that he did not see many white folks defending his religious principles. He did not see anybody coming to his aid when they were trying to put him in prison and calling him a draft dodger. So he spoke directly to the soul of man, folks, to the heart of man, in a way that we still haven't even heard today. I don't know of any athlete today that spoke the way that Muhammad Ali spoke. And get this, keep this in mind. Jim Brown, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in that day came to his aid, trying to see where was he coming from in terms of his faith. And once they were convinced that he was serious, you know how tall Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was, and you know how big Jim Brown was. They talked about being in the midst of Muhammad Ali. All light, all attention went directly to Muhammad Ali. And that was a bad, bad man. And he talked about, I'm a bad man. He knows who he was, and he just talks about over and over again, being true to who he was and being a free man. So yes, he was not afraid of the media. Look, you get a lesson in how to handle the media by looking at how Muhammad Ali interviewed.
I love it. I love it. You talk about owning your power. Muhammad Ali owned his power. He certainly did. He was brash. He was charming. He was braggadocious, unapologetic. Now you talk about unapologetic. He also talked about, listen, he said, I love when he said, he would talk about his opponents. He's too ugly to be a world champion. He's too ugly to be a world champion. He said that before his 1964 title against Liston. He also said the world champion should be pretty like me. He dubbed himself the king of the world, the prettiest thing that ever lived, and the greatest. I mean, he called himself the greatest before anybody else talked about him being the greatest. And like you said, he backed it up.
And you know, what I was going to add to that, Sabrina, is, you know, he used the power of words. you know, the power of words to create his reality, you know, and can you imagine, as you said, Regina, back then that was unheard of for a Black man to stand before a predominantly white audience, reporters, and talk about who he was, what he was going to do, not be apologetic about it, stand flat-footed and look them in the eye and tell them, you know, this is what he was going to do. He wasn't taking this, he wasn't taking that. And then what I love is that he never disappointed, because when he got in that ring, he delivered. It's one thing to say all of this stuff and brag on yourself, and then you go in and everybody's like, okay, it's a joke. But everything that he said that he was going to do, when he got in that ring, you better know he was going to deliver. You know, I thought this was really interesting, that, and this is a fact that some of our audience may not know, and I didn't know it, is that the gloves that he wore to defeat Liston, he earned more money than he did in the victory. He earned more money by selling the gloves than he did in beating him. They said some guy paid $836,000 for those gloves, and Ali only earned $630,000 for that fight. So I'm like, oh my God, somebody paid almost $1 million for the gloves that he wore in that fight. That just blew my mind.
And the thing is, though, and he put celebrity status toward worthy causes. Muhammad Ali probably took that money to do something for humanity. They talked about him having a well-earned reputation for ego and showboating, but he always used his fame to fight for causes he believed in. Participating in such events as the 1978's The Longest Walk, a protest march in support of Native American rights. He dedicated his post-retirement years to philanthropy and humanitarianism, pursuits that took him all around the world, to Iraq to negotiate the release of American hostages, to Cuba to deliver medical aid, to Afghanistan and North Korea on goodwill missions, to the UN in 1984. With his Parkinson's diagnosis, when he made it public, he later did work with actor Michael Fox to raise awareness and fundraise to find a cure. So just an amazing athlete, an amazing man whose legacy will live on forever. Regina, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, to Crisette's point, to your point, we knew him as the champion, 61 fights. He only lost 5 times. I remember all 5 times he lost. And let me say, though, he was such a man in losing, in defeat. He knew how to lose like a champion. He owned it. He said, I lost. I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to come back and be better. We learned from that. We learned when he had Parkinson. And let me go back to the money, to your money point. You know, he was somebody that set the standard, making $2.5 million in a fight. I mean, way long time ago. You know, 10 million, unheard of in that day. So he was able to increase the purse for boxers. He was able to elevate boxing, but also in his defeat, he was great. And then we saw him even afflicted with Parkinson's when he was shaking during the Olympics and he lit that torch. What kind of courage does it take to show folks, I'm not pretty no more. I'm not agile. I don't have the power I used to have, but I still got me. I still got God, and I'm willing to stand before the world and show what it looks like to be humble and to show yourself with all your flaws and still say, I represent America. I'm going to light this torch and we're going to keep this flame burning. Very few people even today can go out and show themselves at their most vulnerable. And that is why the world loved him, because we saw him win. We saw him lose. We saw him maintain his greatness because he knew there was so much more within us than what's outside of us. He knew that. He understood that.
3.5 billion viewers. 3.5 billion viewers watched him carry that torch. That that visual will be forever etched in our minds and our souls for sure. Yes.
And they had to convince him to do that. Originally, he didn't want to do it because of his physical state. And when he realized, they said to him, what you can show the world, just being your human self. We don't need you to be in the ring. We don't need you to be knocking folks out. We just need you to be your authentic self. And that is enough for us because we can identify with regular folks who have trials and tribulations and are winners anyway. And that's why we love Muhammad Ali. And Sabrina, I wanted to say before we get off the air, I will say that we met him when we were 6 or 7 years old. We had the opportunity to again meet him when we were in college. And when we were in college, we took him that picture that everybody was able to see. And he saw that. He said, y'all come follow me. He saw us as little girls. We're now in college. We got to hang out with Muhammad Ali for the entire day. And I want you to know, Crisette, I could have been his fifth wife. He told folks that he was going to marry me. I ain't lying. And you know, I was just done. I was like, what? Knowing good and well, I wasn't been more thinking about marrying Muhammad Ali. He wasn't been more thinking about marrying me, but he certainly said it. And we introduced our mother to him, and he told my mother, I'm going to marry your daughter. And we hung out with him. We had the opportunity to go meet with Oral Roberts, who was big in the faith world here in Tulsa. Oral Roberts is a white man. We went into his office. Muhammad Ali's there. We sat through the meeting. There was a big picture of a white Jesus Christ behind Oral Roberts' head. The first thing Muhammad Ali said was, Jesus was a black man. Oral Roberts, the white man, did not deny that because folks that understand biblical history understand the Mesopotamian basin and the creation and where folks have come from. So to be there as a college student and get that education, even though I knew it, but to see that interaction, and again, to see a man who was unapologetically himself, I was just outstanding. Also, he was a magician. We went with him later on. He performed magic tricks, and I promise you, I watched him levitate from the ground. Till this day, I don't know how he got up off the ground where there was nothing underneath his feet. And I watched him do this. And I'm still amazed by him being a magician, his love for people. He loved children. He communicated with folks across the world. And he was known by many as the greatest athlete of the century by so many folks. And it just, again, his legacy it is a lesson for us. And as we have to deal with all of this hardship today, we know that Muhammad Ali dealt with it. We can deal with it. And we got to continue on, if nothing else, to remember how he dealt with issues with grace. And he can make us laugh through it all somehow. Regina, and also would have us be serious.
You were great. You were great. Let's talk about what did on his tombstone. What was on his
tombstone? So it's amazing. Our family has always said, service is the rent we pay for a room and board on earth. We grew up with that. Our grandmother told us that. And Muhammad Ali on his tombstone reads, it says, service to others is the rent you pay for your room in heaven. And so to think that he understood that whatever your faith is, that we got to do right by folks, be the best we can be. And he said, he talked about all the various religions. And he said, just like lakes, rivers, and streams, they all contain water. All of the religions contain some truth. And let's find it. Let's be the best we can be.
All right. We got to go. This is a great show. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.